So the question is that we can fight it with law, but then we might not achieve whatever it is we want to see in terms of the figures of Kenyans who are getting blacklisted because of the digital lenders in the country. So, Mr. Wahome Ngari, we say that, well, you say that yes, you can fight it with law and come up with all those acts, but then again, you continue to see the same trend, which therefore begs the question, can financial literacy be also an initiative for the government?
Let's ask ourselves, why are we making education compulsory for everybody? What's the whole reasoning? Why are we saying everybody must go to school? And we actually got a couple of pieces of law that actually say so. The Children's Act, I'm sure is part of that. The Constitution is part of that. Now, because there's a whole realization that for us to be able to move ahead, there must be a given level of education. And there's statistics world over to show that. For the Southeast Asia tigers to come to where they were, it became necessary to get at least a quarter of the population to have post-secondary education. Post-secondary for a quarter of the population. At the moment, the Kenya numbers are a bit low. I don't think we have 20% of all Kenyans with post-secondary education. On the other front, we keep changing education systems. We keep changing the curricula. When we got a big challenge with HIV/AIDS, what did the government do? It made HIV/AIDS a compulsory unit for everybody going to college or university. And I think that enlightenment has helped in managing that crisis. And we cannot deny that the infection numbers came down because of that, because people are more well aware, they know what they can be able to do. Now, when we're looking at education, the whole idea about education is making people to be able to manage their space better, whether it is in hygiene, whether it is in health, all those things. Now, if you look at countries that have been able to make good movement and the standard of living is higher, generally this is one of the things that people go through either in school or in college. Now, the other thing is, at the moment, we have issues of truancy in school with children because we took away the kiboko, okay? But what's the system to try and address that? Now, my understanding is if a child is truant, they have to go through maybe 5 or so sessions of counseling. Do you know in the West and the advanced economies, if you are listed in the equivalent of CLB, for you to get out, you must go through sessions of financial counseling. Sessions to ensure that you're well informed on the situation. And people who join like the US Army, this is one of the compulsory subjects that they have to go through, financial literacy. People who join the Israeli Army, this is one of the compulsory. Would we say those countries have made a mistake? Has there been an impact in those countries? I think there has been a lot of impact. And so this is why we need to find a way of building it in our education system. Because you cannot fight from the top. You try at the base. Once you build the base right, then the population is going to turn out right in the passage of time. That's my view.
Pretty much. On that note, I beg that we move on to the last issue that we have on our economic review this morning. Now, it is more likely that Kenya will raise its debt ceiling from 9 trillion, which has seen the country borrow heavily to accommodate expenditure needs at a time when the economy has been hit by the pandemic coupled with a dwindling tax collections. This has come to light after the Treasury Office in its medium-term debt management strategy 2021 indicated that it will table changes to the Public Finance Management Law for approval by legislators soon to raise the cap on debt, with its target still remaining undisclosed. And the Treasury indicated that, and I quote, the formulation of this strategy has been on a background of public debt stock fast approaching the statutory ceiling of 9 trillion shillings set out in the Public Finance Management Act 2012. Now, the Treasury officials wrote in the debt strategy paper for the next 3 years. Fine. Hold on to that thought. Let's look at where we are in terms of a trend, in terms of public, external, and what our latest supporters in net borrowing are. Okay, let's look at quarter by quarter analysis of what our debt has been. That is actually, yes, that's the one that we're talking about. Domestic debt, if you look at it quarter by quarter, that's exactly where we are. You can actually see a jump again. So let's cross over to our external debt, which has been our conversation here on a Business AM throughout. Again, if you look at our period from January to June 2020 as well, I mean, that's where we are. That's exactly where we are as well, a rising trend. Now, recently, we did get a loan from IMF, the 263 billion that is supposed to go directly into sort of filling the gaps that have been created by the coronavirus pandemic. Again, if you look at where we are in terms of our outstanding debt from IMF, as we wait for the 2020 numbers, which we anticipate are going to jump again, look at that number as well. Generally has been falling, but we took sort of a turnaround on that. We've been getting more money from them as well. Fine. Mr. Wahome Ngari, it's been just a year since we revised it from 6 trillion to 9 trillion. We were told we can't get there until 2022, but seemingly we are getting there faster and faster. Now we are bound to increase it. I mean, the first question I'll ask you is 1 year enough for us to go back and revise it and say, wow, we're going to get there, let's revise it again? For you, that period, what does it say?
And a very extraordinary time, something not anticipated that has actually happened. If you look at the Management Act from 2012, we're looking at almost 10 years down the line. And what has happened in the meanwhile? Has the economy expanded? Has the population expanded? Because with all those expansions, we have to say, so how do we move? Just if you look at it at a personal level, if you are earning X 10 years ago, you could only borrow Y. Now, if you are earning X plus something, that means you can actually be able to borrow more. The whole issue, whether we're looking at domestic debt, we're looking at the external debt, I think the whole issue is, what are we doing with the money? If you borrow from out and you consume, it's going to cause you a lot of trouble, and it's going to put you in what we call the hole, which forces you to keep borrowing all the time to sustain yourself. But if you're actually borrowing to invest, if you're borrowing to do infrastructure projects and all these things, yes, I know COVID has brought down the performance of the economy, brought down the productivity, but it's not going to be a permanent situation. So if you're actually looking at the infrastructure, I think we can. Part of our challenge at the moment is that a bit of this is going into wastage. We always get numbers of how much money we budgeted that eventually never went into what was supposed to do. We always get numbers of money that we borrowed that eventually ended up where it should not be. So, and this is where we're getting into this debt appetite that we actually not even having the focus, we're revising it within such a short period. I think 1 year is too short. We cannot be able to run. My understanding is government programs are long term. That's where Vision 2030 comes from.
Yes.
But we break it into shorter term, 5-year plans, so that then we can be able to run things. So we cannot keep revising it year in, year out, because we're going to face a lot of confusion, and we're going to find ourselves very heavy in debt. And servicing it is going to take an effect on the balance of the economy.
All right, let's look at what the debt projections have been throughout that period, because, well, the Treasury Office sort of projects that public debt is supposed to hit 6.66 trillion by the end of this financial year, from 6.69 a year earlier. Fine, but we also expect this to rise to 8.59 trillion in the year June 2022 and 9.37 trillion in the year that follows. Now, Mr. Wahome Ngari, we have been borrowing from IMF, and we do know that some of the fiscal measures that we've had to take is that we have renegotiated for our debt repayments, which we know we have taken heavily as well, which we were not taking last year. In fact, we said no to some of these debt negotiations that we were actually given. We actually even did say no to a COVID relief within the G20. But towards the start of this year, we have taken it. Now, IMF has been one of those organizations that have been telling us that you have to factor in an additional 3.4 trillion into your debt portfolio. Treasury Office comes and says that we're going to factor this on a graduated basis, that we have accepted, yes, but we're going to factor it in on a graduated basis, 3.4, meaning that where we could be right now, we could be at around 11 or 10 trillion in terms of our debt level. What we expect to be raised by, because we have to talk about that. Is it 12 trillion as we spoke about last year, or that has changed? We could see it grow further and further.
I think the question is very simple. Are we living within our means? That's the simple question. And there's, I think, substantive evidence we're not living within our means.
Yes.
There's substantive evidence we do not even want to live within our means. We are looking out to enlarging our registration, enlarging our government. And what that's going to do? It's going to consume more of our resources. Now, yes, KRA is going to generate more revenue, but they are hampered by the effects of COVID-19. Okay? And so if they are not able to generate all the money that we're looking for, commitments that we have, what is the other option? We'd either have to go and renegotiate the repayment terms, or alternatively, we have to borrow from Paul to pay Peter. And I think that's where we are at the moment. We're borrowing from one person to pay the other person. So are we going to be at 12? Is it going to be 14? As long as we're going to live within our means, and we have not found a new productivity instrument. We are quiet on the oils in Turkana. We've not heard a lot about that. We thought that was going to be our reprieve, that we're going to generate a lot of dollars from that. Now, tourism is really crawling. It's not even waking up, okay? Productivity is going down. So with all these things, we are going to borrow more. It's obviously going to be more than 12 trillion. It is not going to be lower. It's obviously going to be more. And we're going to have this crunch for quite a while because we have the appetite to live well. We just like that family who's living on their credit card and the SACCO loan and the Chama loan and any other loan that is easily available. Repayment is going to be a story.
Is it possible for us to start talking about budgetary cuts within this, what seems to be a crisis in terms of our debt management? Is it possible that that could be the avenue? And if not, has our economy grown to a level where we're saying, well, we can't take a budget cut because you need to support the economy as well?
We have, I said, our mindset is we want to live well, and we're living beyond our means. So even when we say a budget cut, who's accepting for a cut in their space? Just look at the leadership, and you can say the leadership, the political leadership. Are they looking to get less or to get more? Are they looking to live in lean times or to live in expensive times?
Yes. Because
we have that mindset, we do not foresee a situation where budget cuts are possible. And we've been there. We said, let's drive this size of a car. How long did we drive that size of a car? Okay. We said, let's not do all these travels. Let's not take all this tea and all these flowers. How long do we sustain it? We say it in the morning, we forget it by noontime. And that being our mindset, we cannot be able to achieve a lot in budget cuts. So we will have to look at efficiency so that when we borrow, we do the money, what we wanted to do with the money, so that we can be able to increase the productivity. If we can see the leakage holes, I think we can be able to go better distance than where we are.
Yes. Let me ask you this question, Mr. Bahomengari, again this morning, because anybody looking at the reasons as why Treasury is giving us this morning as why we should actually consider increasing our debt ceiling, they're all saying it's COVID. But let's go back again now to that data that was showing this morning. So we're going to ask that question. Is COVID-19 getting used as an excuse? Good. Let's go back to the quarter by quarter analysis. And we're going back to 2015 when we started taking in that debt. But it has been rising from 2015. Okay, let's look at the numbers that we have on the table this morning in terms of what our collections have been. I mean, we missed it by 107 billion shillings if you look at the period between July to December. Then Doesn't it make sense that what we could have borrowed is just 107 billion shillings to come in and fill in what is our budget deficit? Which therefore begs the question, if we only need 107 billion shillings, Mr. Homengari, then why are you raising that debt cap? Because had we borrowed 107 billion shillings, we would still be within the limit. Is COVID-19 getting used as an excuse by Treasury, going by what our debt consumption has been all the way from 2015?
Let's give credit where it's due. In January, I think KRA has done well. They've surpassed their target.
Yes.
On the other side, we have a lot of infrastructure projects that are going on.
Yes.
You know, when you're looking at the borrowing, sometimes we don't look at where is the money going. And I think we have a lot of infrastructure programs that are going on, and a lot of them are actually on borrowed money. So that is going to reflect. But is COVID-19 being used as an umbrella? Sometimes, yes, it is. It is. Because it has affected us. It has affected us, our productivity. Like I mentioned earlier, it has affected us, the dollar inflows into the country. It has affected the outflows, but it cannot be the only excuse that we are going to use to run out things, to actually raise our ceiling or to say this is why we didn't do this. We do not have economic efficiency in the way we run the systems.
Yes.
I think, and that is hampering productivity. And when you hamper productivity, then you're obviously going to hamper your ability to create more income or to generate more income. The reality is we are not as efficient as we should be in the way we do our things. And we have a good appetite for living at large.
Pretty much. Mr. Wahomengari, thank you very much for taking your time this morning to weigh in on the various issues that we've had here on our Metropole's Business and Economic Review.
Thank you. Thank you for having me in the morning. And just like I said, we are on your own in terms of financial literacy. Go out and look at how you can better yourself, because that's the only way you're going to enjoy the money you have. Otherwise, the Shylock will come for you.
Pretty much. You are on your own when it comes to your financial literacy. It's a big point to take home. Thank you very much again for being part and parcel of our conversations this morning. Remember, you can take him back to the time that he came into the studio at Metropole TVKE across all your social media platforms. And should you get there, send a comment or subscribe if you can, so we can keep on talking. Good morning.